Before the incentives even passed, there was great buzz about Michigan being this place where not only did they have a great potential backdrop of a city, which is always very valuable to filmmakers. It's hard to find a city to film in. You know, many films are set in New York City or Los Angeles, but you can't afford to film in New York City or Los Angeles. It's extraordinarily expensive. That's why Toronto has, if you really went and looked at the many films I'm sure you're familiar with, and said, oh yeah, that was a movie about New York. Well, it may have been a movie about New York, but it was shot in Toronto because it was cheaper to do it there. The fact that we had a major city, Detroit, skyscrapers, a waterfront, things that could not only look like Detroit, but could look like Chicago, but could look like New York, but could look like many other cities. Immediately, that was the first thing I heard was, wow, we could go shoot in a place like Detroit and get a tax incentive. That would be great. Then people started to learn about the varied landscapes that we have here, the forests that we have, the lakes that we have, the potential that neighborhoods could look from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, mansions, things like that. It became this treasure trove, and everybody who started coming here saying, wow, not only can we get this great incentive, which is better than any incentive that we can get in any other state, but we had no idea that Michigan was this rich in backdrop. And we had no idea that Michigan had all these people who had worked in the commercial industry for the auto commercials and things like that, who already knew what they were doing, had this great base of actors. I hear that all the time from people who are making films here. Man, we didn't realize there was such acting talent here. Why didn't they all come out to LA? Well, I say sometimes people actually like to stay in the state that they grew up. They don't all want to move to LA. So they were very pleased with what they found. And then after a couple of months, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months, there started to become this whisper that Michigan was in too deep, and it was going to pull back, and it was potentially maybe going to put a cap on how much money it was going to give out. And I don't know how to say this any simpler than this. You think that Hollywood is a big place because they make big movies and they spend big budgets, but it could fit in this room in terms of the people who actually make the decisions about making films. And the minute a rumor hits a room this small with 20 or 30 key people making decisions, it's like that, wildfire spreading through it. And even though there was no cap, and even though this was the effort of a couple of isolated lawmakers, despite the fact that this thing had been passed almost unanimously in both the House and the Senate of the state, numbers that dwarfed the number of potential critics that there were, that rumor, that whisper made a lot of people go, whoa, wait a minute. Now we're spending from $3 million to $5 million to $10 million to $20 million to $40 million to potentially $100 million. We're not going to do that if this is a place that's suddenly going to pull the rug out from under us while we're in the middle. How do we know? A film is a long process. You can start thinking about it in 2009, scouting it in 2010, and not even shooting it until 2011, and asking for your rebate back in 2012. That is not an atypical process. So people are not going to be anxious to get involved in a place that looks herky-jerky, that looks like, well, today they have a rebate, but tomorrow they might not have a rebate. Maybe we better stay away from it. I have cautioned lawmakers and critics to be very careful the volume at which they make these statements, because they're irresponsible in this business, because a whisper becomes a rumor, and a rumor becomes an assumption, and an assumption can become a self-fulfilling fact. You don't want that to happen. When Mike and I and some of the other people from the business sat before the legislature, we said to them, understand, we are not telling you to get involved with this because these people will be your friends. We are not telling you to get involved with this because Tom Cruise is going to buy a summer house here, or Julia Roberts is going to tell everybody how wonderful Michigan is. We are telling you to do this because this is a good business model. It has a chance to create jobs. It has a chance to create infrastructure. It has a chance to, if Toronto can become a film center, and it surely is, with hundreds of millions, if not over $1 billion worth of money spent there. If Toronto can do it, there is no reason that Detroit can't do it. If Louisiana or New Mexico, which are empty places compared to the riches that we have here, can do it, Michigan can do it. But recognize that it is a business. It's a business proposition. And as such, you need to give it time to grow, and you need to make sure that your partners feel good about dealing with you. Now, I never worried about the workers here, because we all know that the Michigan workers are the best. We blow away the competition. So many people who've come and filmed here have already commented on the attitude of people who live in Michigan and work versus Los Angeles, the work ethic of staying late and not demanding, well, I'm 1 second, over my thing, I'm going home, that type of thing, which they encounter in Los Angeles all the time. And the pleasantness with which everything is done here, which we all know, but they take for, out in the coasts, they're not used to this kind of thing. So we never had any doubt that that was going to work. And we never had any doubt that the setting was going to work. What some of us did not anticipate was that there would be critics so quickly in this process, and I don't mean a lot, one here, one there, one here, who would make noise irresponsibly without really studying the numbers, without really understanding the industry, trying to apply some other model to how they would criticize this, and how that whisper would tumble its way out to the coast and potentially affect the business here. I urge anyone who is critical of this process, let it grow for a few years, and then you come back and look at it. You would not stop a car on an assembly line when you had just begun to put the frame together and say, I don't like the way this thing looks. You don't know what it looks like. It hasn't been built yet. Wait until it's out on the road and rolling, and all of a sudden you have a new admiration for it. And I think that's what needs to happen here.